So we're just going to ask a few unprepared questions, I promise you, not really, and see where we go. So, Colin, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Auntie's absolutely right. I'm not a telematics expert. When the phone call came through and they said we need an expert in telematics, I thought they said teleaddict, so... OK, that went down well, didn't it?
Well, you woke them up, that's good. OK, Colin, let's start with question number one. Very simple, really. Can telematics reduce loss ratios and deliver a healthy underwriting profit? And that's an open question, not a yes or no.
Sure. Certainly what we've seen so far suggests that it can. What I've noticed that everybody's talked about is self-selection, and that is clearly a big part. In the early stages of telematics, the example I gave was if you said to a number of people, stick this banana in your boot and it records the way you drive, and if you drive really well you get a discount, the people who said, yes, I'll take that banana and put it in the boot, would perform better. They would produce better results. They'd be a bit gullible, but they would produce better results. So certainly that has happened. Other things that we've seen that I think are contributing to positive results are where negative feedback is given, particularly very negative feedback, where they're told they're virtually on the edge of being kicked out, an awful lot of them will walk. So you've got the opposite of positive self-selection. You've got people who are saying, yeah, I'm not really up to this, so I'm going to take my business elsewhere. And that's something that's pretty positive. And then there's a competitive element where people are reviewing their feedback quite regularly, and they want to see it get better. So they're actually, competing with themselves to produce better scores, maybe even competing with other people. So I think Grant used the word game, something or other, gamification, and I think that can certainly help. I think overall, particularly when it becomes mass market, the key thing, what we get in here is we get the ability as underwriters to rate on not just an accident record, but also a near-miss record. Which of the behaviours might have contributed to an accident, and that's what will help certainly. I think something else that one of the guys touched on is that there are fairly big discounts being given because this pre-selected, self-selected group are performing well. As this becomes more mass market, those differentials will be diluted. The margins will then get squeezed, and at some point we're going to reach a point whereby the margins will be squeezed so much that they're not actually covering the cost of the technology. And I think when that happens, the black box stuff at 200 quid a go is just not going to work. So we are going to have to move, I think, to some of the other options, certainly the cheaper ones to install.
OK, thank you. I will take some questions from the floor, but you have to raise your hand, and if I notice, I'll ask. But otherwise, we'll carry on. Just want to make that clear, as long as that's all right with you.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Just going back to some of the sort of pre-thought-through questions, would you say the use of data is basically oversimplified? Is there scope for more sophisticated pricing?
I think there is scope for more sophisticated pricing. I think one of the challenges is really just how much data can we actually cope with? I think somebody said if you have data that's collected on a per second basis, if you're talking about, say, 2 hours driving per day per customer for 100,000 customers, that creates 25 terabytes of data per year. A terabyte is just over 1 million megabytes, and that in itself is just going to be so big to manage that we're going to have to find a better way to do it. I think the other things that we're going to have to get better at is finding ways to automate everything. And I think Grant said it's labour intensive, it needs a lot of people to do it. Until and unless we find a way to get this information in and to automate it and to make the same decisions using technology as we do using underwriters, then it's going to be very hard to do that on a really big scale. So I think that there are better ways to do it, and I think they will evolve. And I think the people, the underwriters that will win and come through will be the ones that manage to do that more quickly.
Okay, yeah, I mean, picking up something that Grant said, it's getting lots of mentions here, was when it comes to the information that's used, you've got all this data coming in. Generally, the focus is on speed, acceleration, cornering, and time of day.
Yeah.
Now, if you think about that, does that basically mean that if everyone goes along that route, we end up with a level playing field again, which is exactly where we are at before telematics? So what is the point of it? Is the rest of the data window dressing, or is there real value not tied to too much cost to make it worthwhile?
I think some of what you say is right. It will be a level playing field. Having said that, you can give two different people the same golf clubs and they will not produce the same results, as anyone who's been on a golf course with me will testify. So if you give everybody the same, or each underwriter the same set of data, they're not all going to come up with the same answers. So I think that that's really where the skill is going to come in, being able to interpret it and work out actually which bit. So there are other elements that will come into it. For example, weather conditions, bringing in external data. In many ways, there's almost no limit to what might be brought in. Could we bring in things like, is there a way to find out how many occupants are in the car? If there are fewer occupants, then there's less chance of a personal injury claim. Does what they listen to on the radio affect the way that they drive? Is there a way to get that information? So that there is still a lot to go for, and I don't think that we'll all finish up in the same place, because we certainly haven't finished up in the same place using the conventional factors.
Okay, this is quite interesting. Obviously end up with a lot of teenagers listening to Radio 4, if that goes that way. One of the issues I'd like to talk about really is one that does bother me, is about renewals and who owns the data.
Yeah.
This also goes back to, there was a quote by Sir Tim Berners-Lee, Mr. WWW, who was speaking, I think it was a Bieber conference either a year or 2 years ago, about insurers and the use of personal social media. He called for, I think what he meant was a statement of principles by the industry to get together, collude, whatever you want to call it, and say, we will use this data and we won't use that data. Is that something you think we should do? It breaks into areas of police requests, employer requests, all sorts of areas I don't really want to go down to.
Wife requests. I think it has got to come. I think at the moment there is potentially a conflict between what the customer is happy to give us and some of the information that we will actually know. We will know where they are, what time they're there, how quickly they're getting there, how long the car stays in a particular place. And there could well be a bit of a conflict between the information that we have and what we use it for and whether the customer is happy with that. I think the renewal aspect is a key one. If somebody goes to the trouble, and we might think we're having to shoulder the main burden by spending £200 on doing this, it's a hassle for the customer. They have to wait in when somebody comes around, and do they always turn up on time, and so on, and how long do they take? So they've gone through that. If it comes to renewal, if somebody else says, oh, we might be able to give you a better deal, but we need your data, if we say, well, no, we're not going to give it you because we've spent money on it, that's not going to do the industry much good at all. So I think that the sooner we do that, the better. In reality, when we look at the situation with the statement of principles in relation to flooding and the lack of solution there, do I think it's going to happen quickly? Probably not. But I think we would do well if we could voluntarily move to that without necessarily having something like the FSA force the pace for us. So I think that would certainly be a good thing to do.
Okay, just on the same sort of area really, and it's, perhaps I'm being too cynical, but the insurance industry in particular has not showered itself in glory when it comes to selling claims data, personal claims data. When it comes to more telematics data, and obviously there are costs involved, investments, there's a need to make more profit. What do you think the industry can actually, hand on heart, say, okay, we won't sell this data?
I think we should say that. I think if we don't, then I think we're sitting on a time bomb. And if people start to get an advantage in terms of expenses by selling data, so if they know that you happen to go to, I don't know, a particular restaurant and they start selling information to other restaurants, or you use a certain supermarket, so they sell your data. If you go to Tesco and they sell your data to Sainsbury's, I think that would be the thin end of the wedge. I think that would be pretty appalling. I'd be disappointed as an industry if we did that. I think as an industry, we give ourselves a bad press. Some of it's deserved, a lot of it isn't. And I think that the last thing we need is anything more like that. So I think a voluntary code of conduct, statement of principles, whatever, would be absolutely the way to go.
Okay, thank you. We're going to wrap up in a second. Any questions for Colin before I do so? We've got away scot-free, I think.
Yeah,
I just want to ask...
I said I'd make up some time because I know lunch is on its way, so that's fine.
Just the last question, really, an observation. I've written about insurance for many years. I've heard lots of ideas about underwriting and claims, getting together, sitting down, sharing more information. When you actually, underwrite a vehicle, that you've actually got some claims experience on that sort of vehicle. Mm-hmm. Will telematics help improve the communication between underwriting and claims?
I wouldn't have thought so, no. Well, yes, it should do because we'll both be getting information from the same place. I think different companies, the claims departments, underwriting departments work well or not so well. But I think there is an opportunity to do that because I think if the claims departments can start to feed back the information, the underwriters can use it at the front end, then I think there is an opportunity for... You'll never get perfect harmony because at the end of the day they're spending our money, but you will get an improvement, certainly, yeah.
Okay, and just to round off, do you think telematics will become mass market?
I do.
And how long?
I think it has to be. Well, that's the million-dollar question. I think sooner rather than later. I think 5 to 7 years. Technology moves really quickly. If you look at an iPhone today compared to the bricks that people were carrying around 5, 8 years ago, and all the things that it can do, I'd be surprised if it doesn't happen within 5 to 7 years. I think by then more people than not will have some kind of use-based insurance. And I think there are also lots of opportunities for us to become a bit more innovative. I think we can link good behaviour not just to reduction in the premium, but if you get a good score on your motor policy, you get a discount against your home policy, or you get reward vouchers for something. There are different ways to do it, and I think we have an opportunity to be innovative. There is also the public safety element. I think if we are actively rewarding good driving, good behaviour, then ultimately it saves lives, reduces cost, everyone wins. So I think there's a lot to go for, but I do think it will become mass market, very much so.
Okay, thank you. Well, your predictions will have to come true now. Thank you very much to Colin. Thank you.
Thank you.